We start at a swanky casino party in the Italian mountains, where a team of MI6 agents are trying to capture a dodgy bloke called Mulvaney. And no, I don't mean that one what loves ruining American beer brands.
LOL!
Anyway, the team consists of an Asian bird called Yang, a getaway driver called Bailey, an Irish Henry Cable lookalike fella called Parker, who's just as bad of an actor, and newbie tech agent Rachel Stone, who's supposed to be too inexperienced to enter the field, but then enters the field anyway because reasons. And their super sneaky plan to super secretly extract Mulvaney soon goes tits up when they send an Asian bird to inject the target with a knockout serum, but who instantly gets caught by the guards. And before you can say, for fuck's sake, you had one friggin' job, love, a giant brawl breaks out before the Irish bloke eventually captures that Mulvaney fella and gets the heck out of Dodge in a cable car. When suddenly, an Indian bird cracks their comms and sends them all an ominous message, whilst ominously raising a glass to Rachel IRL, also because reasons. Yang then spots Mulvaney's men heading down the mountain to ambush Parker for when they eventually reach the bottom, so she and Bailey race down to try and stop him, whilst tech noob Rachel Stone pretends to hide herself away whilst letting the proper field agents do their thing. But in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming, turns out the main character of a Netflix spy film is a super secret spy agent herself, who promptly flies down the cliff with a stolen parachute using super secret spy tech, where her handlers are able to give her a real-time virtual shortcut route to descend the mountain like a souped-up sat-nav. And before you can say, so it's Mission Impossible but for Mogadons, they also remind her that it's super important that she don't blow her cover, because they've spent months embedding her in MI6 and making her look like some unassuming rookie tech nerd what no one would look twice at, despite clearly being a smoking hot supermodel who instantly attracts all kinds of attention. Meanwhile, on the way down, Parker suspiciously interrogates that Mulvaney fella about something totally vague and mostly off screen, whilst Bailey the getaway driver also fails to do his one job by running into traffic and not getting them down the mountain in time. But luckily, super secret super spy Rachel Stone totally gets down there before her own dopey team, and then single-handedly takes out all the goons with the aid of her virtual handler Jack, who uses some AI tech called the Heart to see where their baddies are and predict the best tactics and outcomes. Or some shit. And a little later, once on the ground, the clueless MI6 agents who seemingly can't do any of their jobs properly also can't figure out where all of Mulvaney's goons have gone, since they should all be waiting to open fire on their butts right now. And Rachel promptly hides behind a small corner so as not to blow her cover, while said Mulvaney fella is busy choking to death on a hidden stash of cyanide. No! Anyway, after the opening titles, we cut to London, where the MI6 boss totally bollocks the whole team for not being able to do anything fucking right, including not bringing Mulvaney back alive and the inexperienced tech newbie suddenly deciding to leave the frigging van. And to top it all off, they now have to deal with some random Indian bird compromising all their encrypted comms and shit. Later that night, the team have a drink after work and chat about conspiracy theories, like how there's supposedly a shadowy cabal of highly trained and unaccountable ex-intelligence operatives working together to keep world peace across the world, known only as the Charter. Kind of like the current day CIA, only if they had good intentions and stuff. Naturally, Parker thinks all this is loony talk, and more unbelievable than the thought of Donald Trump not getting convicted in a DC court of law. So a squirming Rachel just says, yeah, you're a right tinfoil nutjob, son, and promptly gets the heck out of Dodge before anyone figures out that she herself is one of them highly trained unaccountable ex-intelligence operatives secretly working to keep world peace across the world. Anyway, the next morning, Rachel, aka the Nine of Hearts, heads over to the Charter HQ, where we're introduced to her handler, the Jack of Hearts, and her moody boss, the King of Hearts, who have teams all over the world what are named after suits of playing cards for some reason. And before you can say, why is she called the King if she's clearly a woman, or are they implying she's a diversity hire and thus might have a secret sausage in her pants, they soon tell her that that Indian chick who keeps rudely interrupting their super secret missions is a young orphan and tech genius called Kaya, who set up the casino bash to totally lure Mulvaney there, so she could get him to spill the beans about the quantum AI computer called the Heart, that is so powerful that it can essentially predict the future by crunching a shit ton of data and numbers. Which is exactly what these Charter lot are using for their super secret operations, which includes flying stolen parachutes off Italian cliffs and keeping world peace and shit. Naturally, Rachel is a bit uneasy about these guys trying to get their hands on the world's most powerful supercomputer, but Jack and the moody King girl tell her to totally take a chill pill, bro, and get back to eating fish and chips with the MI6 lot and shut up about it already. Later, she briefly makes contact with Kaya before tracing her location to Lisbon. And after doing some bonding with the MI6 team and also making googly eyes at Parker, who ominously has a scarred up back for some reason, they all have a little boogie. But Rachel's dancing is so stiff and awkward that the universe swiftly intervenes by lobbing a concussion grenade into the room to finally stop the cringe. And as the team soon come under attack and try to get what they think is a newbie tech analyst what can't fight for shit the heck out of Dodge, the virtual Jack of Hearts in her ear tells her to defenestrate herself already, because the super quantum heart AI reckons that she has an 82% chance of dying if she don't totally jump out the window and run away like a right cack. But because she's a woman and presumably a bleeding heart liberal, she just can't bear to leave a bunch of dopey Brits to get deaded in a small Portuguese apartment, even though it's explicitly not her mission to save them. So naturally, she rips out her earpiece and starts smacking up all the baddies whilst giving me a raging lob on. And after using her super secret driving skills to extract the team super skillfully, they demand to know who the heck this wonderful Wonder Woman really is, as Yang says she totally owes them an explanation, despite her just saving all their lives for a second time this week, and thus technically owing them absolutely fuck all. But Bailey puts two and two together, and soon realises that the mysterious charter group was a real thing all along, and he's totally not an Alex Jones type tinfoil nutjob after all. But in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming, the shady Irish bloke totally shoots their teammates in the noggin after she comes out and admits it all. And it looks like it's curtains for Britain's #1 conspiracy theorist and also the useless Asian what can't even poke a bloke with a little needle when he's distracted by TV. As Parker reveals that as head of the terrorist group who totally wants access to the heart, he infiltrated MI6 to flush out the charter member who had also infiltrated MI6. And he's been working with the Indian hacker chick all along.
No way!
So naturally, they have a quick punch-up, where Parker slices his stony foe with a paralysis toxin and then leaves her to die. Because turns out he wants to destroy these charter fellas, and he also totally killed Mulvaney by forcing a cyanide pill into his gob after interrogating him about the heart in the cable car. And she just can't believe that the all-powerful, all-knowing and all-seeing heart thing didn't even suss out that the dodgy Irish bloke with a scarred up back and a pocket full of poisons might just be a bit of a wrong'un.
No!
Anyway, after her charter colleagues trace her phone and give her an antidote just in the nick of time, they become the victims of a naughty cyber attack via a wireless Trojan somehow, as Stone cuts a device out of her arm which was put in there also somehow. And although the penetration only lasted 3 minutes, aka my average record on date night, they soon realise that the giant blimp called the Locker that is holding the physical heart AI 85,000 feet above the Senegalese desert has totally been briefly compromised. But luckily for them and all their jobs, the defences have just about held. So Stone advises that they just shut it all down this bloody instant, because they just can't risk the world's most powerful quantum computer falling into the hands of a grubby Irishman without compassion, morals or decent acting ability. But Jack and the Moody King reckon that that's an absurd overreaction, because then they wouldn't be able to use the super awesome technology themselves.
Not a great plan.
So the King instead just bollocks her for ignoring orders and returning to save her phony fakey team, blowing her cover what they spent months organising and then getting them all killed anyway. Now suspended from active duty and totally racked with guilt, Stone gets a random call from Kaya, who totally taunts her about being a better game player than her. And although the Indian chick is genuinely shocked to hear that her partner killed her team and tries to assure her that it totally wasn't part of their plan, Rachel just vows to come after her regardless. Cause shooting up far-right conspiracy theorists and committing hate crimes against innocent Asians just ain't fucking on, son. And mainly because that's the FBI's job. Meanwhile, the kings of each suit finally come together IRL for the first time in years. And after delivering some exposition about Parker's painfully generic backstory, where an MI6 operation went south and the King of Clubs ordered the entire region destroyed and thus betrayed his whole team, they all panic about what to do now he's back and hell-bent on revenge and shit. Whilst Kaya confronts said Parker fella about killing Bailey and Yang, but he just says stop whining about two people you've never met and shut up about it already. Elsewhere, Stone goes rogue and once again traces Kaya's location, and this time directly to the desert where that heart MacGuffin is. as the baddies have used another Trojan virus to lower the locker to a manageable altitude and have now flown up to go steal it. And the King of Hearts lady, what's totally meant to be in charge of the world's most powerful quantum AI machine, hilariously states that there's no agents in range to go defend it. And before you can say, well, why wouldn't you have trained agents stationed in the area at all times, guarding the most powerful weapon in existence? The baddies soon land and enter the locker, whilst the useless charter team just throw their hands up in despair, before spotting something moving pretty fast on radar. And at first, they think it might be a bird, then they think it might be a plane. But turns out it's that budget Wonder Woman bird in a starfish suit gliding toward a blimp.
I fucking knew it!
And after farcically landing on said blimp, she soon gets into fisticuffs with that naughty Irish bloke, whilst the Indian bird secretly steals the heart of the heart. And after Parker ruins her parachute and sets a giant fuck-off bomb to explode in 10 seconds, Stone climbs up top and ludicrously jumps onto their chopper rope, as the blimp then explodes worse than my bowels on Taco Bell night. Anyway, now out of options, she cuts Kaya's rope and soon rides her unconscious body without her consent. And before you can say, the last time I rode someone's unconscious body without consent I ended up doing 2 years in the slammer, Stone thinks about totally eating the naive naughty kid what loves doing terrorism and stuff. But unfortunately, she's only gone and programmed the heart to match her own biodata, so much like top totty actress Gal Gadot in this film, the whole thing is totally pointless without her. A little later, and said naive naughty kid talks about her own tragic backstory to totally fill their time whilst wandering about in a giant fuck-off desert, about how a rather nasty scientist used their parents as lab rats and totally killed them via horrific experiments. And before you can say, how do we find Anthony Fauci and stop him? She explains how she wants to help Parker get control of the heart so they can destroy the charter, and totally expose the legions of shady villains who are doing a bunch of bad things all over the world, given the charter only seem to use it for super slick global spy missions, and not saving little brown orphans from medical experiments in small backwater towns. Or some shit. So, after they get picked up by some kind-hearted stranger randomly out here in the middle of nowhere, Stone places a tracker on her new frenemy's jacket before getting dropped off in town and promptly getting shot up. Because in another shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming, turns out the kind-hearted stranger randomly out here in the middle of nowhere was actually a dirt poor African or got paid to deliver them to Parker's goons.
No way!
Luckily, protagonist Rachel Stone is totally infected with the power of plot armour, and thereby manages to avoid getting shot up by simply running in a straight line, whilst armed men shoot directly at her but completely miss somehow. Until she jumps off a giant fuck-off cliff and totally escapes, whilst Kaya then gets taken back to Parker. After being picked up on a beach by a fellow charter agent, Stone updates her moody boss on the current sitch, and says, "God, you ain't gonna believe what the heck just happened to me over the past hour or two, boss." But said moody boss just tells her to shut up about her thrilling life as a rogue super spy, and to get back on active duty now things have totally gone tits up for everyone and they no longer have the infallible prediction data of the heart MacGuffin to fall back on. Before adding, I'm totally cucking out, son, and heading to a private bunker given that crazy Irishman wants to kill us all and shit. So you better get your butt over to Iceland and take him out already. At least I think it's Iceland, because the genius editor decided to put white fonted captions over a blindingly white icy landscape. Because total incompetence, bro. Anyway, the baddies soon bring the heart online, as Parker can barely contain his raging Woody at finally taking out the first Charter King by dropping the elevator she's in and also killing a bunch of civilians in the process. Naturally, Kaya is horrified that this hardened ex-contract killer would immediately start getting back to his old tricks immediately after gaining control of the world's most powerful supercomputer that can trace anyone worldwide and also seemingly fucked with lifts from anywhere on Earth. And speaking of, they've now tracked the King of Clubs to a nearby town where he's hot on their trail. So they use that tracking device what Stone planted on Kaya earlier to lure him into a trap and blow him to Kingdom Come. And it looks like it's curtains for that dopey King of Clubs fella and also a bunch more innocent civilians, all because the head of a military branch of a shadowy cabal got outsmarted by a simple computer chip. And whilst now having located the King of Hearts aka the Moody Boss, Parker seals their secluded bunker and remotely shuts off their oxygen supply. And she's starting to rather regret not listening to Stone earlier when she advised shutting down the AI program until they bring in the terrorist cell hellbent on gaining control of the deadly superweapon that's about to end up killing them all right about now. And instead just told her to shut up and suspended her ass without pay. But anyway, Kaya calls up Stone and tells her all about the mental shit that's going on after realising she was right about everything. And that now she's finally had a crisis of conscience, she's totally taken the heart offline, which has really pissed off that Parker fella with the terrible acting. So Stone rushes over to the baddies HQ to try and stop his naughty plans and also get the bunker's oxygen going again, mainly so all her friends can totally keep doing that living thing. Unlike her previous friends who got their brains blown out all over a small fountain. And once finally coming face to face again, Stone gives Parker a cringy feminist speech before using the power of sisterhood to team up with Kaya to totally take him out, and then finally getting the oxygen fans back online just in the nick of time. Huzzah! Then we cut to 4 weeks later, as Stone visits Kaya in what seems to be the nicest jail cell ever, as she soon recruits her for their new team as long as she promises to use her skills for good and totally never ever do any of them bad things ever again. And before you can say, did they really only give her 1 month in prison after naively teaming up with a killer to create a terrorist organisation that got dozens of people killed? We end with Stone heading out on a new mission. Because instead of learning any moral or even practical lesson about such technology being too dangerous to be wielded by any one single person or group, they continue using the Heart AI machine to go on thrilling new adventures and execute unaccountable international operations. Because I suppose if the producers actually delivered on any kind of thematic arc for the story or character, then they wouldn't be able to end the movie with a blatant and shameless setup for a sequel. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was when this budget Mission Impossible film tried to recreate the skydiving sequence from Fallout, despite clearly being filmed on a terrible green screen and not featuring a 60-year-old legacy movie star who does all his own stunts for his films. But anyway, that's a plot and that's a lot, considering that mail thing, so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll see you in the next one.